So without a doubt, the GLA adventure is very special to us, very close to our heart, and so the GLA itself becomes a very special model too. So when the new generation arrived, we wanted to get our hands on it right away. Thanks to the pandemic, we had to wait, take our time, but I'm excited because we finally have the cars here with us. It's nice also to see that the family has come in with a number of variants. You've got two variants on the diesel, the 220D and the 220D AMG line. That's the AMG line, of course. This one is the GLA 200, that's the petrol. But you know what? That's not all. The GLA family has another special member in India from word go. And you know what? We've got it exclusively for you here on Car and Bike.
The Mercedes-AMG GLA 35 4MATIC is one of the racier avatars of the GLA class SUV. The car comes with that hallowed AMG badge, and it, along with the more potent GLA 45 and 45S models, offers faster, edgier performance, and hey, you know it, styling too. As I said, we have the whole family, but we want to first show you the apex predator in the GLA clan here in India. A special car indeed, so we brought it to a special place. To begin with, the new generation of the GLA has more of an SUV proportion when compared to the last car. It's a good looker, and the AMG version more so.
Now usually on a sports SUV, it's the styling changes and even some of the mechanical elements that make the car look a little more hunkered down, more sporty. It's interesting how the design on the GLA 35, because of that AMG badge, actually lend it more of an SUV nature. I mean, the vertical slats, AMG front grille, makes the car look a little upright, makes the front look more imposing. And you've also got the bigger wheels. The AMG pattern certainly helps that cause once again. And the 4MATIC badging, I mean, that's again, true blue SUV. So it's interesting, like I said, how the GLA 35, the AMG version, tends to look more butch than the regular one.
There are 6 colors, and while that includes the Patagonia red you see here, being a Designo color, this costs extra. 6,70,000 extra to be exact. The car gets a lot of things standard for India, and that list spans everything from the 19-inch wheels to the panoramic sunroof.
So you know how they say hot hatch? Well, this one's like a hot compact SUV. I know it doesn't have the same ring to it. The reason I say that is because, look, with the GLA, there was criticism of the first generation being too much like a hatch and not SUV enough. The good news on this generation is it drives like an SUV. You get into one and straight away you have that SUV feel. So does that also translate into a sporty SUV feel on the 35? Now there's a little layer to that answer. The simple answer is no, but I think that's a good thing. A lot of people would say, hey, it should continue to feel like an SUV when you're driving it because it is a GLA. But I submit that a lot of people buying this car are buying it for its performance. If they wanted just a compact Mercedes SUV, they could just buy the regular GLA 200 or 220D. Why would they buy this one? Well, only because they would drive themselves. They wouldn't be sitting at the back, and they want this exhilaration. So the car shouldn't drive like an SUV, it should drive more like a sports car. Now, it's of course not like a super sports, but it gives you that stiffness at the expense of hard ride quality, yes, no doubt. On our roads, maybe not the best thing, but at least you get that true sports experience. For me, that's a huge tick, a red tick.
The steering is not as sharp or stiff as I had expected though, but does the job. If you are expecting a typical Mercedes-Benz feel in the car overall, think again. The GLA 35 is stiff and best suited for those who like being in the driver's seat.
An adaptive suspension with variable damping, that is standard for the India spec. It's a good thing too, because frankly, if you look at our road conditions and marry it to the fact that this is, at the end of the day, a slightly stiffer car, well, obviously, the two things work very well together.
So you can have individualized driver mode settings. Then there's Comfort, Sport or Sport Plus. In Comfort mode in particular, the ride will feel a bit more pliant. Yet on a car like this, you want the growl and the instant response, meaning Sport or Sport Plus are its best modes. The GLA 35 uses the Mercedes-Benz M260 4-cylinder engine that also goes into the range-topping petrol GLA 250 overseas. The engine has been given an AMG tune, but it is not made by AMG. That's only on the GLA 45. There's a minimum hint of lag, and so along with quick throttle response, you get a gearbox that will comply even if you don't use the paddles.
So the great news is that the cabin feels very much like an AMG. It's got all the typical trimmings and trappings of an AMG model in terms of color, palette, material. You got the red stitching everywhere. You've even got the red seat belts, which I love. And so that's the part which will be great because, you know, the 35 is really for people who are driving themselves, owners who are driving themselves. Fits the brief.
The cabin gives you the latest single-screen look infotainment touchscreen plus digital cluster. The cluster has customized views of the instruments too. The two screens work through touchpads on the steering, as in all Mercedes models. The same is true for the car's phone connectivity, wireless charging and a Burmester sound system. The car also has an inbuilt SIM with the Mercedes Me Connect app, allowing you to use telematic functions like remote unlock or geofencing. Being an AMG model, you also get the flat-bottomed steering wheel and sport seats. On the safety front, everything and more is standard: collision warning, tire pressure monitoring, ISOFIX, 7 airbags including a knee airbag, active brake and brake assist, active bonnet, stability control, anti-lock brakes with brake force distribution, and attention assist.
Now, it's the three letters at the back of this car. That's the one thing that's going to get a lot of attention besides the car itself: AMG. No surprise to see an AMG parked with an exotic backdrop like that, right? You do see these kind of customers going to these sort of places, but what's going to be interesting is the strategy from Mercedes-Benz India. You've got the compacts driving out, which are locally built AMG models for the first time. So more accessible, a whole lot more perhaps on our roads, and it'll be good to see what the competition does about that. And of course, remember, speaking of being accessible, places like this, getting there in an SUV, easier, isn't it?
Yes, this is now the third AMG model to be assembled here. This allows the company to offer a GLA with that AMG badge at under 60 lakh rupees. The pricing for the GLA 35 makes it quite attractive given the car's dual personality. The The GLA 35 is a blend of practicality and performance. It is relatively affordable than a full-blown AMG model would be, and so I could not be happier that it forms an integral part of the GLA class portfolio here in India, and not just a niche small batch of import units as we saw in the last generation. That portfolio now, as you will recall, stretches to 4 variants then. There's the GLA 200 petrol, the GLA 220D, and 220D 4MATIC with the AMG trim. Those are the diesels. And then, of course, this car, the GLA 35.